She cheated on me with a foreigner, and it's time for revenge. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who got cheated on. I wasn't perfect, but I provided. I loved my wife, Sarah. Maybe that was my mistake, loving her too much, trusting her too much. Because trust is a weapon in the hands of the wrong person, and Sarah. She wielded it like a knife to my throat. It started with the late nights. The sudden, unexplained absences. She was working extra hours, but the money didn't change. She smelled different, like cologne that wasn't mine. And then there were the text messages. She used to leave her phone anywhere. Now, it was glued to her hand, always locked. At first, I told myself I was paranoid. Maybe work was stressful. Maybe she was just tired. But paranoia has a way of gnawing at you until the truth slithers out. Then, one night, I found the proof I never wanted. Sarah was in the shower, and her phone buzzed on the nightstand. My heart pounded as I stared at it. I knew what I was about to do was wrong. But something deeper told me it was already too late. I picked up the phone. The message on the screen made my stomach drop. Can't stop thinking about last night. I miss your body. It wasn't from me. I didn't recognize the number, but the message was clear. My world tilted. My breathing slowed. My vision tunneled. I wanted to rage, to storm into that bathroom and confront her. But something inside me, something cold and calculating, held me back. No. I wouldn't explode. Not yet. I needed to know who. I needed to know everything. So I swallowed my fury and started planning. Because if Sarah thought she was going to get away with this, she was dead wrong. I played it cool the next morning. Sarah kissed me goodbye like nothing had changed, like she wasn't sneaking around behind my back. I wanted to grab her, to shake her, to demand answers, but I bit my tongue. Instead, I smiled. I had work to do. First, I copied the number from her phone before she woke up. Then, I sent it to a buddy of mine who worked in security. Find out who this belongs to, I told him. No explanations. Just urgency. Then, I waited. That evening, my friend got back to me. The number belonged to a man named Alexei Petrov. Foreign name. Russian? Eastern European? I didn't care. What I cared about was why my wife was talking to him. So I started digging. Social media. Online records. Anything I could find. And what I found made my blood turn to ice. Alexei wasn't just some random guy. He was dangerous. I wasn't dealing with some clueless idiot. Alexei Petrov was careful. No social media presence, no digital footprint beyond a few vague business registrations. But the deeper I looked, the more unsettling it became. He wasn't just dangerous, he was connected. I found whispers in the dark corners of the web. Mentions of his name tied to missing persons cases, shady business dealings, and rumors of organized crime. If Sarah was involved with him, she had no idea what she was playing with. Or worse, she did. I had to be smarter. I couldn't confront him head-on. Not yet. So I followed Sarah. That night, she told me she was heading to a girls' night. I nodded, kissed her goodbye, and watched as she got into her car. But instead of going inside, I grabbed my keys and followed at a distance. She didn't go to her friend's house. She drove across town to a high-end hotel. I parked across the street and watched as she stepped inside, her phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline. A few minutes later, a man in a dark suit walked in after her. Alexei. My hands clenched around the steering wheel. It wasn't just an affair. It was something more. I needed to find out what. I didn't go in right away. I needed to be smart. Reckless anger would get me nowhere, and if Alexei was as dangerous as I suspected, confronting him without a plan could be my last mistake. Instead, I waited. Minutes turned into an hour. Then another. My patience was wearing thin, but finally, they emerged. Sarah was smiling, her hand resting lightly on Alexei's arm. The sight made my stomach churn. I took a picture. Proof. Then, I followed them. They drove to a secluded restaurant on the outskirts of town. Dimly lit, the kind of place where people went to have conversations they didn't want overheard. I parked a few spots away and slipped inside, keeping to the shadows. They sat in a corner booth, close together. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught fragments of their conversation. Shipment coming in next week, need to be careful, he doesn't suspect a thing. I froze. They weren't just having an affair. Sarah was involved in something much bigger. Something illegal. Something deadly. My mind raced. I had proof of Sarah's infidelity, but now I had stumbled onto something far worse. If I confronted her now, she'd deny everything, maybe even warn Alexei. I needed to play the long game. I followed them outside, keeping my distance. They parted ways, Sarah heading home, Alexei driving off into the night. I trailed him. He didn't go back to a house or apartment. Instead, he drove to a warehouse near the docks. The place was locked down tight, security cameras on every corner. Whatever he was into, it wasn't small time. I had to find a way inside. My heart pounded as I formulated a plan. I wasn't just dealing with betrayal anymore. I was stepping into a world of crime, deception, and danger. And I had no choice but to see it through. I spent the next day preparing. I bought dark clothes, gloves, and a small camera. If I was going to break into that warehouse, I needed proof, something undeniable. That night, I parked a few blocks away and made my way to the back entrance. The cameras were there, but I had studied their blind spots. I moved quickly, slipping through a side door that was left slightly ajar. Inside, the place was massive, crates stacked high, the scent of oil and metal filling the air. I heard voices in the distance and ducked behind a crate, inching closer. Shipment arrives tomorrow, weapons need to be moved quickly, weapons. This wasn't just an affair. Sarah was entangled in an arms deal. And now, so was I. I didn't have much time. The shipment was coming in tomorrow, and if I was going to expose this, I needed solid evidence. I snapped pictures of crates, recorded snippets of hushed conversations. Every detail mattered. Then, a voice rang out. "Who's there?" My blood ran cold. I had been seen. My heart pounded as I pressed myself against the crate, willing myself to disappear. The footsteps grew closer, heavy boots against the concrete floor. "Come out," a deep voice commanded. I didn't move. My pulse was a war drum in my ears. A flashlight beam cut through the darkness, sweeping dangerously close to my hiding spot. I held my breath, praying I wouldn't be discovered. Then, a crash. A sound from another part of the warehouse. The guard cursed under his breath and turned away, heading toward the noise. I exhaled slowly, slipping further into the shadows. I needed to get out. I had gathered enough evidence, pictures of the crates, snippets of their conversations. But I couldn't leave without knowing the full extent of Sarah's involvement. I crept along the perimeter of the warehouse, moving toward an office in the back. The door was ajar. Inside, I could hear voices, Sarah's among them. Too risky. "We need to be more careful," she said, her tone sharp. Alexei chuckled. "Relax, my dear. Everything is under control." I pulled out my phone and hit record. "You don't understand," Sarah insisted. "If he finds out, it'll ruin everything." He. She meant me. My grip tightened around my phone. My suspicions were confirmed. Sarah wasn't just involved, she was deep in this operation. She had chosen this life, chosen Alexei over me. A sudden rage bubbled up inside me, but I forced it down. Now wasn't the time. I had to get out, take what I knew, and use it. As I turned to leave, my foot grazed a metal tool on the floor. It clattered loudly. Silence. Then. "Someone's here," Alexei growled. I ran. I sprinted through the warehouse, dodging between crates and machinery as heavy footsteps thundered behind me. My lungs burned, my heart pounded like a war drum. I couldn't let them catch me. A shot rang out, echoing through the cavernous space. A bullet ricocheted off a metal beam, sending sparks flying. They weren't just chasing me, they were trying to kill me. I skidded around a corner, yanking a crate down behind me. It crashed to the floor, spilling weapons across the concrete. My mind reeled. How deep did this operation go? A door loomed ahead, bathed in the glow of an exit sign. Freedom was within reach. I burst through it, stumbling into the cool night air. Tires screeched behind me as a black SUV roared to life. They were coming. I didn't stop. I sprinted toward my car, my fingers fumbling for the keys. Just as I yanked the door open, another gunshot split the air. My rear windshield shattered, glass raining down as I threw myself inside and hit the gas. The SUV tore after me, its headlights burning into my rearview mirror. I weaved through the darkened streets, my pulse hammering. I had the proof I needed, Sarah's betrayal, Alexei's operation, but I had to survive long enough to use it. I needed help. I reached for my phone, dialing the one person I could trust. "Pick up," I muttered, swerving onto a side street. The ringing stopped. "Hello." I exhaled in relief. "I need you. Now." My tires screeched as I swerved onto a side street, my hands shaking on the wheel. The SUV was still behind me, its headlights searing through the darkness. I had to lose them. Fast. I took another sharp turn, barely avoiding a parked car. My phone was still in my hand, the call still active. "Where are you?" their voice on the other end asked urgently. "I'm being chased. I have proof, but they know I soar too much. Head to the old train yard. I'll meet you there." I didn't hesitate. I pushed the gas pedal to the floor and sped toward the edge of town. The SUV followed, relentless. I reached the train yard and killed my headlights, skidding to a stop between rusted-out train cars. I jumped out, heart hammering. Footsteps crunched on gravel behind me. Then, a voice. "You really shouldn't have gotten involved." Alexei. He was here. I turned to face him, my fists clenching. "It's over. I have everything I need." He smirked. "Do you?" A gun clicked. My blood ran cold. Before he could pull the trigger, headlights flooded the area. A second car screeched to a stop, and a familiar figure stepped out. My backup had arrived. Relief flooded me for a split second, until I saw who had stepped out of the car. Sarah. She wasn't there to save me. She stood next to Alexei, her expression unreadable, and took the gun from his hand. Then, she pointed it at me. "You should have just let it go," she said softly. Everything fell into place. Sarah hadn't been dragged into this, she had orchestrated it. She had played me from the start. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Why?" She sighed. "Because you were in the way." The gunshot rang out. The gunshot echoed in the night. Pain bloomed in my shoulder, searing and immediate. I staggered back, clutching the wound as Sarah lowered the smoking gun. "Why?" I gasped, struggling to stay upright. She stepped forward, her expression unreadable. "Because you wouldn't stop digging," she said simply. "You always had to know the truth." Blood trickled through my fingers. My vision swam, but I wasn't out yet. I glanced at Alexei, his smirk was gone, replaced with cold calculation. "Kill him," he ordered. Sarah hesitated. That hesitation was all I needed. With every ounce of strength I had left, I lunged, knocking the gun from her grasp. It clattered to the ground as we struggled. Her nails clawed at my wounded shoulder, sending fresh waves of agony through me. But I held on. Alexei cursed and reached for his own weapon. Before he could aim, headlights flooded the yard. Sirens wailed in the distance. The backup I had called. Sarah's eyes widened with something close to fear. She tried to bolt, but I held her firm. "It's over," I growled. Alexei turned to run, but the police swarmed in, shouting commands. He had nowhere to go. Sarah sagged in my grip, defeated. The woman I had once loved had betrayed me in every way possible. And now, she would pay the price. As the officers took them into custody, I let out a shaky breath. It was finally over. Or so I thought. The days after the arrest were a blur. I should have felt relief, but something gnawed at me. It was too easy. Sarah and Alexei were taken down, but I knew men like him didn't operate alone. There were more players in this game, and I had only seen the surface. One night, a knock at my door sent my pulse spiking. Cautiously, I opened it to find a plain envelope on my doorstep. No name, no return address. Inside was a single photo, Sarah, sitting in a dimly lit interrogation room. She wasn't defeated. She was smiling. Beneath the photo, a note in block letters, "This isn't over." Cold dread crept up my spine. Sarah had something planned. Or someone was planning for her. I wasn't safe yet. And I had no idea what was coming next. The next few days, I barely slept. Every shadow, every unfamiliar face, sent paranoia coursing through me. I knew someone was watching. The question was, who? Then, a call came. Blocked number. I hesitated, then answered. A voice I never wanted to hear again whispered, "Miss me?" "Sarah." My blood ran cold. "Where are you?" She laughed, a cruel, knowing sound. "Wouldn't you like to know? But don't worry. We'll see each other soon." The line went dead. I gripped the phone, my knuckles turning white. Sarah had escaped. And she was coming back. For me. I didn't wait. I packed my things and left town that night, but deep down, I knew she would find me. I had underestimated Sarah before, and I wouldn't make that mistake again. Days turned into weeks. I changed numbers, stayed off the grid, but I always looked over my shoulder. The feeling of being hunted never left me. Then, one night, she found me. A knock at the door. I grabbed my gun before opening it. There she was, Sarah, smiling, calm, as if none of it had ever happened. "Hello, darling," she purred. "Aren't you going to invite me in?" I didn't lower the gun. "Why are you here?" Her smile widened. "You still don't get it, do you? You think you've won." I kept my grip firm. "It's over, Sarah." She laughed. "No. It's just beginning." Then, she reached into her jacket, and everything exploded into chaos. The final battle had begun.